Season 1, Episode 7 of the Salespeople Podcast. Benjamin, how are we?
We're good, mate. We're good. I feel like I say this a lot, but I'm on leave again today.
I
swear I've only had like 6 days off this year, but it happens to be every time we record a podcast.
Very good. So thank you so much for being here and your hard-earned time off.
Thanks, mate.
How's your fingers?
Yeah, I've smashed my finger up this morning at the gym.
Yeah?
Because I go to the gym.
Operation Six Pack. How's it coming along?
We're getting there, mate. And then I've hit my head with a paddle bat this morning, so rocking and rolling.
Might have done some good, let's find out. But yeah, thanks a lot, everyone. And welcome to the Salespeople Pod. We are the Middle East's first podcast dedicated to celebrating salespeople. Every week we'll have a superstar salesperson on the pod talking about their sales journey and a topic close to their heart. And last week we talked about gathering momentum. We introduced something about pitching the pod and getting people to share the love. We're getting loads of direct messages. We don't want that. We want it to go out into the universe. We've got our first pitch to Podster. So we'd like to thank Chris, sales manager of the Wagon, put in a lovely little LinkedIn post, our little mugs on the picture. And we want to keep this going. Like, we want people to really share the pod. It's great getting feedback. We love having people say nice things, but can you push it a bit further? Put it onto LinkedIn. Can you send some voice notes to friends and share it with us so we can share the pod love? We're going to talk today about kind of a bit more of an SME feel. So doing some research, 557,000 SMEs in the UAE, about 63.5% of the non-oil GDP in the country. So SMEs, I think you hear this in a lot of countries and continents, are like the backbone of the region. Ben, we've gone through journeys where we've been in enterprise, startups, sold into SMEs and enterprises. What's been your thoughts on kind of the importance of selling into SMEs?
I say this a lot, and it's a real boring answer to your question. I don't think it really matters whether you're selling to SME startups or big enterprise businesses. I still think that the fundamentals is it's person to person, people buying from people. But SMEs, you're usually dealing with a decision maker, which happens to be usually the founder or the founders of the business or the MD, etc. Like, fundamentally, I don't think there's a massive shift in the way that you'd sell.
In terms of like decision making, enterprise people have a lot of budget at times, maybe budget to kind of shift as you move into like the financial years. SMEs may have a more stringent kind of budget and every dirham counts, shall we say. What are you changing when you might be selling across things like budget and across things like the financial implications of having products?
That comes down to more personas, right? So if you're selling to multiple functions, so not even selling to, but decision makers are sitting in finance, they're sitting in HR, they're sitting in maybe a sales director, etc. You can't sell in the same way to different types of people. An FD's decision making, he's looking at different things than the sales director. He's looking at different things from HR. He's looking to the owners and the founders. So you have to change your pitch depending on who you're selling to with inside businesses. And I guess with SMEs, where they tend to be a bit tighter on budget, you have to be really careful if you're selling into an FD and make sure there's a clear return on investment, etc.
And impact. So selling products into the SME space, and that your product can solve the solutions that can really impact the SMEs. What can you do with that? And where do you see the impact that your products can make on SMEs for further business?
So the two sides to that. The first side is a lot of business owners in like the SME world know each other. So if you can do a good job, you can quite often then get referred to similar businesses because they tend to be quite a tight-knit community. And then you should really be selling a product that you believe in. We've spoke about that loads of times. With an SME, because they don't tend to be massive businesses, you can see the impact on the product that you've sold. So if I think about the times that we've sold insurance and you've given them a good plan and the employees have got dental, and you would have met the people during the buying process that you're having a positive impact on their life outside of work. So I think that's important.
Yeah, I think like the onus of getting more referrals in general is so important. But I think with the SMEs, because you see that direct impact on not only the initial workforce, but the impact that has with the relationship with their bosses can really drive home. And I think one thing that we've seen that we can do better but have done really well with is that power of referral.
Yeah.
And I think the easiest thing that anyone listening can do is just ask more, especially when you know you've got happy clients who are utilizing whatever your product is that is making a direct impact on the end user. Then there's no harm in saying, hey, we know that this experience is great. Can you share 4 or 5 different people that we can approach similar to you?
I think Dubai is really good for that as well. Like, almost always everyone's happy to help each other as long as you do a good job. It's just, there's so many WhatsApp groups and stuff of like founders and SMEs, like they will always refer you as long as you've done a good job and you've been authentic during the sales cycle, right? Dubai, I think almost more than anyone, certainly like getting referrals in the UK is a bit harder because businesses operate more in silo, the communities aren't as close. You might have sold someone in Manchester, they don't know the next person in London, but here, like so many people outside of work with like sports communities and stuff, it's much easier to get referrals. But you're right, most people still aren't asking for them.
It also gives you avenue for feedback as well. And you ask for a referral, people might be apprehensive. Okay, is that an introduction to understand, well, why wouldn't you? Is there a challenge or product? Is there something that we're missing? And you can cover all bases then. But simply asking, if you know that a client is happy, utilizing, if you're using technology so you can see that there's clear engagement, then amazing. But the power of referral is I think, an underrated tool.
Yeah. 9 times out of 10, most people will refer us in our other business without asking, which is really nice. But we also monetize that, right? That like we have a program in place that whoever refers us to a business, we pay X% to. And I don't think many people have a like commercial model for referrals in place. And even though those people might have done it anyway, a little extra like thank you and putting a commercial model in place sort of makes sense. And like it's rewarded us really well.
Yeah, 100%. And just making sure that everyone involved, there's something in it for them that they can go out of their way. Impact of working for an SME. So like we've touched on this in other episodes, and we'll introduce Emma and the impact that she's made. She's actually working in 2 departments in her current role. So from a working standpoint, what is the impact that you can make versus maybe an enterprise or a bigger business?
Or a small, like, I think it's a real nice sweet spot because it's not a startup where like there's a million things going on necessarily. Yeah. Or it's not an enterprise. And I think that's how we're looking at the 3, right? Enterprise, SME, startup. You can drive impact, but maybe with a bit more stability and structure around it. And I think that's SME is a nice place to be. Yeah.
There's a lot more impact that can be made. And there's also problems that you can solve, right? It's still kind of in that territory where there's probably a bit more guidance and vision, but there's also that kind of canvas where you can go and change your areas.
Best of both worlds.
There you go, mate. So yeah, I'd like to introduce Emma, VP of Scylla and AI-driven insight provider. Kind of worked her way through real estate into tech, worked in different kind of in prop tech, into like data and insights, and now into Scylla. What do you think you're gonna get out of this, mate?
So I'm really her role before Scylla, she's obviously had a huge insight into the startup and the funding market here. I think that's going to be really cool to find out. And then I love what they're doing at Scylla, like AI-driven insights into businesses. I've sat down, I've seen the product, like it's really cool, and it'd be good to understand that.
Should we get a run?
Let's do it.
Let's do this. Hello, Emma. How's it going?
Hi, guys.
How are you? How's life?
Good, busy, as always, but no, it's good.
Q4 keeping you up?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is, but no, it's good. It's all moving in the right direction.
Lots in the pipeline?
Lots in the pipeline, lots of, proposals out there, things keeping us busy. So it's going really well.
Confident?
Yeah, I am. I think we're set up for 2025 really nicely. Like this year's been a huge amount of learnings and, we've done changes of product and stuff like that, but the past 6 months we've really set ourselves up nicely, and I know 2025 is going to be amazing for us. So feeling very confident.
Good. Looking forward to hearing all of it. But let's kind of go into your journey into the UAE, your sales journey, and how you got onto the pod of us.
Okay, cool. So where do I start? So I came to Dubai in 2014. I'd never been to Dubai before. I had never worked in real estate, so I think I saw an advert on Gumtree. I was in my early 20s, and it was like, selling the dream, as these real estate companies tend to do. And it was a new real estate company, so they were hiring 10, 15 people, all from the UK, bringing them over. All of us were in our early 20s. And it was, in your first 6 months, you should be earning £5,000, £10,000 a month. that kind of thing.
Pitched well then?
Pitched very, very well to someone that was a little bit naive, in all honesty. But yeah, I made the move. So a couple of months later, packed my stuff. They offered 3 months free accommodation, which honestly is pretty much unheard of. So obviously people that know the real estate industry here, it's commission only. But I was like, I saved up a bit of money. I think I had about £1,500 in my bank account. Packed my suitcase, came, didn't know anybody, and kind of just started, I guess, my professional sales career from there, really. Landed, and literally the first day in the office, I was handed like a whole long list Excel sheet. I think, 200 people. Got on the phone. Started making those calls.
On the phone day one?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, there was no training. No, I mean, it was like hardcore, It was... This is a seller's list. This is a list of potential buyers. Basically call it and make magic happen.
So you're sat there with 10, 15 people, day one, you get given a list, crack on. How are you all feeling as a group?
I think it was quite competitive. Obviously no one knew each other. It was a bit like going into like the Big Brother house. And honestly, I always say that even at the time, the drama, like the stuff that went down.
If the walls could talk.
Honestly, the stories, like we could probably do a whole nother podcast on that.
Definitely up for that.
Yeah. I'm not sure it was. I'm not sure it'd be legal, but But yeah, it was a crazy time. But yeah, super competitive. Everyone was really energized. And look, I didn't really come from a professional sales background. Like I was at uni, I was working for a beauty brand in the UK, kind of doing sales, but more kind of retail stuff. So it was a massive shock to me. I didn't know really what anything was.
And Dubai in 2014 is different to what Dubai is now in 2024, right?
Of course it is, yeah. I mean, it's so different in so many ways. Again, one of the main things I saw in those first few weeks was just the opportunity, and I think in that time of being there, I just became so hungry for success. And I don't think I necessarily had that before. I literally came on a bit of a whim. It was like, I'll go for 6 months, earn, £10,000 like they said I'm going to earn. And I'll come back. I'll save a bit of money and then I'll come back. I honestly thought I'd be here for a year. Yeah. Obviously, I'm here now nearly 11 years.
I think there's so many stories like that. I was here on a 6-month plan, and
90% of people have a 2-year plan, and then 10 years later you're still here.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was kind of how it all started, really.
What were the learnings from the real estate job?
So much. I think that hustle and that grind. I mean, I went in, like I said, it was a new real estate company. They weren't really investing in marketing or anything like that. They would literally just get people on the phone. You've got
your Excel spreadsheet. What
else do you need? You don't need to put any income leads, right? I just learned so much. I think it was just that hustle. I mean, it was commission only, and I had £1,500 to last me. Doesn't go very far in Dubai, as we know, right? So just really pushing, and I remember we would get out early doors, be out of the house 6 a.m. I'd go out with flyers and literally go around to all the villa communities, like the meadows, the lakes, which was like the place back then. I mean, none of these other communities had even been built. And I'd literally be waiting for people to come out their house, be handing them a leaflet type thing, saying if you're looking to sell, if you're looking to rent, or whatever, we're here, we can help you. So yeah, it was tough. It was I managed to stay a year, and I don't really know how, because I wasn't doing great, in all honesty. I managed to do some deals, and I managed to get some money and kind of make it through, and a lot of kind of sleeping on sofas and sharing with friends and stuff like that. But it was such an experience, and I really learned so much, especially from a sales perspective. And I think one of the key things for me is the takeaway is that focus. When I joined the real estate company, we were able to rent, sell, anything in the whole of Dubai, which is just crazy. Even back then, obviously Dubai is a lot bigger now, but even back then, just not having no focus, and we were all just running just all over the place. It's a bit of a mess.
Would you, for young salespeople, not only in Europe but across the world, you're thinking about UAE, would you recommend the real estate job as something to do to get yourself in the door?
I do. I think yes, but I think choosing the right company is vital, right? There's so many companies selling the dream, but very little actually doing what is needed to make someone successful. And I know there is a lot of real estate companies out there now who have built a lot of processes for training, for development, which, if you've got that hustle and you can get yourself in the door, then 100%. I think the challenge that you have is then transitioning, because there is a bit of a reputation about real estate agents, right? And actually, even recently, I was on a call with a client, and he'd obviously looked at my LinkedIn profile, and he said to me, "Oh yes, your background's real estate." I was like, "Well, 11 years ago it was, but I haven't done real estate for like nearly 11 years." So there is a bit of a stigma. So sometimes transitioning into other industries can be hard, but look, I've done it, so it can be done. I think it's just a bit of luck.
From a hirer's perspective, from an employer's perspective, one of the challenging things I've found about moving people out of real estate is they've had a taste of really big commission checks. So they might have earned 50, 60, 70k in a month, and that might have only happened once, but like there's like, I could go and do that every month. So then you're trying to move them into a job that doesn't pay that as a basic salary, even if they hit target with commission. So like they sort of get caught, but they're not earning that every month, but they could. And if they move to a non-real estate job, then they're never going to earn that, or unlikely to ever get back to that sort of money unless they get into management, etc. So I think it's a bit of a catch-22.
Yeah, it is for sure.
So from real estate, then you moved.
So then into prop tech. So I went to do a bit of a stint working as a business development manager within a real estate company. So that was kind of managing more sort of partnerships for the business, so relocation companies, getting contracts to get them to when they're bringing people over, get them to use our services for rental and leasing and things like that. A little bit of marketing, not a huge amount, but it was a bit of a blended role. So I did that for a year or two, and then into prop tech. So I worked for one of the leading property portals, I guess, here. And I guess that was where my kind of tech kind of sales really began, because again, as misconception, people think that working for a property portal means you work in real estate, but obviously it's not. It's tech. You're selling ad placement, you're selling advertising, you're selling packages so that people can advertise their stock, basically. And again, for me, that was a new department that I went into, and I feel like a lot of my career I've either been in brand new companies like the real estate, or with that it was a new department that they set up, so we were selling into developers, not into real estate agents, which was obviously slightly different. So three and a half years there, which was again another learning curve and huge amount of change in the time that I was there, because it was definitely more of a startup when I joined, sort of 2017, around that time. At the time I left, it really transitioned. They'd had a huge amount of investment, and they'd really transitioned into more of a corporate. So seeing that shift and being part of that change and seeing it was really interesting. What
were the biggest changes that you saw in that transition?
I think just sort of the processes, I guess, and the ability to make impact. And I think when I first joined, it was very much trying to communicate easily communicate internally with product and, feedback from customers and stuff like that. Whereas by the time we got towards when I was leaving, it was not as much, because you're more in a big corporate giant then. And not that it was a corporate giant, but it was, heading that way. It was just slightly different, really. And
then the move into Magnet.
Yeah. So then Magnet was a move that I did sort of 2020, I think it was. So around in sort of during COVID.
How did that come about?
So it was for a recruiter, actually. Yeah, it was during COVID. There'd been a lot of changes at Property Finder, so it was time for me to just move on. And with the role that came up, Philip, who runs it, was looking for someone to basically come in and help with sales. I think there'd been a couple of hires before that hadn't really worked out, so it was just a case of getting in, rolling up your sleeves and trying to get the job done, really. And that was, again, working. It was my first real experience, I guess, of being in a startup, because although they'd been around for a few years, they were still trying to find their place in the market and figure out the product and what they were selling. I think when I started, the subscriptions were around $49 a month. It was like almost like an online platform where you go on and you can pay with a credit card. And by the time I left, I think the minimum value of a subscription was $20,000. Wow. So being part of that change and helping with that growth has really been something I've been most proud of in my career so far. And just seeing the shifts, working with the different departments, helping build the product, discussing with product, tech, marketing, and you just get I got so much exposure across all of the different departments. And I think when you work so closely, so I was reporting directly into the founder, and the CEO of Magnet, you just get a different perspective. You get to learn a lot quickly.
What made you, so you said there a couple of people had left before you, wasn't successful. You've gone in there with no real background knowledge between like VC investment and that side of it. Like, what made you successful? What did you do well?
I just think it was the real push, like I'm very, very driven. I believed in the product, and I know you guys were talking that at the start. Like I really believed in what they were doing and what they were trying to change. And I just saw that it was a great opportunity. And I valued the relationship with the founder. We had great synergy, which I think makes a huge difference when you're working in that type of environment. Yeah, I think that's the main thing. But for me, it was just just never giving up, and just keep pushing. I know it's very stereotypical, but for me, that was what worked.
I think the relationship with a founder and their employees, I think, is really important, because we obviously know that business quite well from an outside perspective. Went through huge growth. I'm sure there's huge pressures on you. If you weren't brought into what the founder was doing and what the product was doing, like, you just wouldn't stay under that sort of pressure. You have to buy into like the people and the product to stay and then be successful.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly that.
You spoke a few times about like communication and internal communication, so like being the voice between product, marketing, etc. And I think that's really underutilized in a lot of salespeople, and having that ability to absorb from a customer to then translate into the different like nuances of the department, whether it's you're talking to product, you're talking to finance, talking to marketing. What is the impact that you've made on that, and how important is that, especially in like smaller businesses, to be able to translate from customer to internal?
I think when you're in a startup and you're in that kind of go-to-market phase, it's so vital. I mean, it's probably one of the most important roles within the organisation, because you're getting feedback, you're on the front line, you're talking day in, day out with potential customers. You'll be getting objections, you'll be getting pushbacks, and if that's not getting back to the right people within the business, then you're never going to go forward, right? So yeah, that's for me that was one of my things was, what were people saying? Why are they saying it? What could we be doing differently? And then just pushing that and making sure all of the teams internally got that information. And
what about like navigating uncomfortable conversations where the feedback hasn't been great, or the product isn't where teams internally outside of sales believe it is? How do you try and navigate that to be as comfortable in an uncomfortable scenario?
I think just coming from a place of, look, everyone's on the same table, right? Everyone's wanting the same thing. And I think as long as you've built that trust internally, and it goes beyond just giving feedback, making sure you've built those relationships internally so people know that you're coming from a place of, look, I want to build this together. We want this to go in a certain direction. Then you should get that trust, you should get that buy-in. And I did, and that's why I feel like I was lucky enough to be able to do that.
Nice.
I think we spoke about this 3 or 4 episodes ago. Like, you have to hire a mature salesperson to be able to go in and give feedback to product, because it's challenging. If Philip at the time hired someone really junior, if they then went out and got like negative feedback, it'd be very easy for the salesperson to go, "Oh, it must be me," versus the product. It takes a lot of maturity to go, actually, I'm selling in the right way here, but actually these are the things we need to change about the product.
Yeah.
So I think it's important at that stage to have hired someone mature enough to go and deal with.
And also for non-sales departments, if you have the ability to go and see your customers, whether you're in product marketing or at the C level, like hear it for yourselves, because that way you can have a different voice and a different opinion versus someone where ultimately a salesperson's objective is to sell.
Yeah.
But if you have that understanding of where the product is in your mind versus what your clients actually translate to, then you should see an upturn in how your product is.
Yeah, and look, I was super lucky. That team is so well integrated, and Philip is super involved in a lot, which kind of made my job easier. Like he would ask to come to certain meetings and be involved in those conversations. So yeah, I think that again makes a huge difference, right? Especially in those early stages when you're setting up and you're trying to figure things out. Having that support of the founder is really important.
And you're now again being the voice of Scylla.
Yeah.
How is being the VP of Scylla and working your way through that?
Yeah, it's good. So yeah, I joined Scylla just over a year ago. We are disrupting the research and consumer insights industry. what we're building, what we've built in the past sort of year or two since I've been there is really incredible. We've had some changes, we've had some slight pivots with product, but we're now in a really, really strong position. Like I said, as we enter into 2025, I'm really excited, and I'm leading marketing as well now. So when I initially joined, it was sales. And then, I don't know, I've always had an eye for marketing, I think. Again, I'm working in places like Magnet gave you that exposure across different departments. And then when I joined, I kind of shared some ideas that I had. And then after a few months, they asked me if I would lead the marketing team as well, which is great because, again, I'm starting to build that team. I've got a great guy that I've hired, brought in. He's really making an impact, and it's really good to see.
How much have you been learning about marketing then? Has it been on the job or?
It is, yeah. I try and do some outside of work stuff, right? Podcasts, audiobooks and stuff like that. But again, it's a bit like sales. It's not rocket science. You know, if you've got a bit of common sense, you know what the vision is, what the goal is. And you've hired some good people around you, which is what I've done. Like, I've got a great guy that I've hired in marketing. I've got a great guy that I've hired as my SDR. That really helps you be able to achieve things. So yeah, it's them, not me. And
you've obviously gone on this growth journey from real estate individual through to now being a VP. How was the transition from you going from individual to leader BIM? Yeah, it's been good. Yeah, I mean, look, that transition, I think, to management is always a tough one, especially for a salesperson, because management isn't for everybody. And I've had to learn a lot as I go along. I think especially when it comes to things like hiring, knowing the right type of personas to hire for particular roles, and, you know, with certain backgrounds and things like that. That's one of the things, and knowing when to hire as well, right? I think especially when you're in a startup environment, making sure you hire at the right time, because you can hire too soon, you can hire too late, and trying to figure that out. And look, there's been some mistakes. It's not all been, you know, plain sailing, but there's been a lot of education in that department, I'd say. And if you're looking for salespeople to be molded into a great Scylla salesperson, what are you going to be looking for? Resilience. Yeah.
How do you, like, I love it as an answer, but how do you test resilience in an interview process?
It's a hard one, actually. And this is, I guess, it's one of the traits that you want from a salesperson. But knowing, I think, it's being able to track that and monitor that in an interview process is hard. With some of the SDRs that I've interviewed and kind of who've been in like the final kind of, you know, set of people that I'm interested in hiring, they've always just gone above and beyond, you know, like little things like maybe when the poster's gone out, I've got a message from them directly on LinkedIn. And for me, that shows initiative. It shows that they're like able to be like, just push further and maybe just think slightly outside of the box, which kind of builds into what someone that's resilient is, right? And yeah, I think somebody, again, from an interview process, I try and do some sort of role play type of stuff and ask difficult questions. And again, I don't want them to get it right necessarily, but it's more about how they answer and the approach, which I think makes a huge difference. Cool. I think that's good for part 2. Let's stop for part 3. We'll do some quick fire stuff and then we'll have a little reflect. Part 3, quick fire round. You just told us you're prepared, which is great. Thanks a lot, Emma. So quick fire. Just going to fire some sales related questions at you, and then first answer, a couple of sentences. That'd be great. Okay. Cold calling or hyper personalized emails? Hyper personalized emails, but you have to build cold calling into the sequence as well. So you have to have, like, I think for initial outreach, as long as it's super targeted, and I'm talking for us, like, we've got brand data on a particular client, we're sending it to someone that we know this is, you know, really special personas. These guys are getting that email, and they're getting a second email, they're getting a call, they're getting a LinkedIn message. It's a whole sequence. So like impactful stuff, not I saw you went on holiday 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So we're really, I mean, we used to do it more kind of industry based, which I still think is personalized in some instances, but now it's like no proper company data. So did you know X Bank, your brand score increased by 12% in October, as an example, and that's being sent to, you know, 5 or 6 of those really kind of key profiles for us.
Who's running that? The marketing or the sales team?
Data is coming from, so it's sales. Sales. But data is, we typically get support from marketing to kind of present it nicely. So like case studies and other stuff like that. Yeah. Cool.
community building or networking?
Networking.
Because?
I think this city is just built on networking, right? You know, and we were chatting before and you're like, oh, I should introduce this person, introduce that person. And yeah, for me, networking
Shout out
is...
for Danny Hakeem.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Cool. Long sales cycle or short sales cycle?
Long sales cycle. More rewarding, typically. Yeah.
Fair. Enterprise deals or SMB business?
Enterprise, again, typically more rewarding, more complex, more complicated, longer, but typically more rewarding. And again, when you get the bigger enterprise accounts on, sometimes it's easier then to start branching out. And you say, oh, we're working with X company. Yeah.
You working weekends or are you fully switching off?
No, never fully switching off. I don't think you can with sales, right?
Yeah.
There's always, especially, I mean, look, we work a lot in the KSA market. They work Sundays. So I might get the odd WhatsApp here and there. I'll answer it. I'll respond. Yeah, for me, sales is just part of my life. I don't really, and even when I go on holiday, like I'll always work if I need to. You know, if I've got to jump on a call, I'm in the Maldives, I'll do it.
It's not a bad place to take a call.
It's not a bad place to take a call, no.
Office or remote?
This is a good one. So I actually love being in the office.
Yeah.
I think you can't beat it, right? You need that collaboration and it makes sense. However, if you're working in Dubai at the moment, you'll feel the pain of the Dubai traffic.
Yeah.
So I think, look, hybrid for me is perfect. But if I would have to choose, it would be in the office.
You said you don't switch off, but what do you do on your downtime? How do you sort of refresh your engine a little bit?
So I've got a 3-year-old who is quite good at distracting me in that sense. But actually what I'm trying to do at the moment is just do a little bit less. I know it's so easy when you live in Dubai to go to the beach clubs, go to the nice restaurants. Like there's always something going on. There's always events, especially this time of year. But it's exhausting as well. And actually what I'm trying to do is just do less. So like yesterday, me and my little boy, we literally just stayed at home. I cooked a roast dinner. We watched a movie. And actually that's what I'm enjoying. Sometimes the simple things in life are actually the better things. And I think when you live here, you can just get a bit distracted by the 5-star resorts and the
glitz and the glamour.
Yeah, the glitz and the glam. And actually sometimes doing normal things like cooking a roast dinner is actually the best way to relax.
How can you be a successful person in the UAE? So if you used to give anyone tips moving here for the first time?
I think knowing when to walk away from a deal.
Massive.
I love that. Tell me more, because I think there's so much to unpick there.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the biggest things that you need to learn early on in any sales career, especially here. There's a lot of relationship building. Everyone, you know, a lot of the time when you're selling to people, I feel like they don't want to maybe tell you the truth. And I went recently and I met this lady who we'd been pursuing for ages. Like it was all going really well. She was in my pipeline. I was like, yeah, this is going to come in. Went and met for a coffee. Again, I thought that was a great sign, meeting me on a Friday afternoon for a coffee. And then she was like, I'm really embarrassed to say, but we actually don't have any budget now. And I was like, yeah, so you need to know. You need to know. Oh, you need to put an end to it, right? And I think if I hadn't gone and met her for that coffee, she probably wouldn't have told me that over the phone or over email. So really knowing when to be like, don't get me wrong, she's still there and we're still in touch, but knowing where to focus your energy, because you can get so consumed with deals that are just not going to close for whatever reason, right? And there could be a million reasons. So yeah, just knowing when to call it quits and be like, thank you, but I'm going to move on to the next one.
I think that's the best answer that we've had for a tip for the UAE, by the way. I think so important and across industry as well. Yeah. What's the best sales advice you've ever received?
Buyers are liars. Kind of goes in with my answer to my other question. Do you know what? That was actually the first bit of, I guess, training or advice I got when I first moved here in the real estate industry.
You one bit of training.
My one bit of training. God, I hope they're not listening to this podcast now. They'll come after me. Yeah, buyers are liars. Again, it's not all of them, obviously. I've got a lot of amazing clients, but just knowing to really unpick some of the answers that you get from clients, because people will be scared to be honest, be scared to tell you.
It's not intentional lying to lead you on.
It's just sometimes it's just cultural, right?
Yeah.
It's they just want to, they don't want to let you down. No. So just
if anything, it's from a place of like good.
It is
kindness.
100%. Yeah, 100%. It's just as a salesperson, you need to spend your time on deals that matter.
100%.
What's the one final tip you'd leave the community before we go, Emma?
Just to be super resilient. And I think, you know, the city is really built for resilience. You need to be resilient to be here, right? Like there's a lot of competition. There's a lot across industries, and especially now we can see the influx of people, and you guys probably know more than I with your other business, that it's hard, it's tough. And if you don't have that resilience to keep pushing, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, 100%. Every week we asked our guests to ask a question and the next guest will answer. So it came from Mrs. Resilience, who was Gift. How do you handle objections in sales?
Okay, so every deal I've ever closed has had multiple objections. So I think not being afraid of objections is like one of the main thing. Don't be scared of objections. It's completely normal, completely part of the sales process. Just making sure that the client feels heard with those objections. I think that's vital to being able to overcome any.
I think you're spot on, because I think a lot of salespeople like almost ignore the objection to try and move on as quickly as possible. Then the client's like, oh, you didn't even hear me. So
or divert the conversation, right? That's the sales 101. Yeah. Divert into a different topic. But no, I think it's important to really understand it and really make sure that the client knows that you understand it and you're going to do your best to overcome it.
Yeah, I love that.
Amazing. Emma, thanks so much for coming on to the Sales People Pod. What we're going to do is have a little reflect and give some takeaways, but amazing from you, and good luck for the rest of the year.
Thank you, guys.
Legend.
Cheers.
Oh, let's do a reflect. Great episode. Really engaging, and love to understand kind of the journey. For me, the biggest thing that I'd love to do an episode on with someone, like the cross communication, the way she identified communication across the journey, whether it's into marketing, finance. I think we spoke about like the C-level. She clearly nailed that. And in the SME or the startup space or a tech space where the evolution of a product is so important, to be able to do that well as a salesperson, I think it's worth its weight in gold.
And it's really hard for salespeople to do it.
So hard.
If we hit target, we're like, product is brilliant. Yeah. Miss target, something wrong with the product. But as we said in the pod, it takes a level of maturity to go back where this is the feedback we got. And like, not all feedback's relevant. Like there's some feedback you have to go, customer just doesn't like me or isn't right for the customer. But if you sit in front of a customer and you know they should be buying your product, if your product can develop in the right way, taking that bit of feedback and being able to give it to the product team. But also, like, the finance will probably have to sign off something with product, and the co-founder or the founder will have to sign off the budget. Like, there's so much that has to happen for product to develop. It's not just telling a product person, build this. And to be able to communicate that from a sales perspective, I think it's really, really important.
What about you? Any thoughts?
Mate, another story of, similar to Josh and Alistair, where they've come in, hit the phones, got really commercial, done that like grunt work of like 100 calls, but like she's a VP of sales and marketing, and she learned so much just from that first year in real estate. So like, I think a lot of people won't do that grunt work, will want the closing position straight away, like aren't willing to do 100 calls a day because life's moved on, but like, do that work and it'll pay you back 10 times. I put a post about it last week off the back of Josh's, but like, do the grunt work, get involved. If you're serious about a career in sales, do that as your first job. Like, go out and find a horrific 100 call a day job and it'll pay you back.
You're going to be thick skinned by the end of it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. We'll leave it on there. An amazing episode. Again, thank you so much for everyone that's listened. We're on everything that you can think of: Spotify, Apple, YouTube, all the big ones.
TikTok,
Instagram. We are exactly.
LinkedIn.
Ben's going to do a dance on TikTok. There you go, an exclusive. Like, comment, 5-star, pitch the pod. Chris Austin, thank you so much for pitching the pod. We love you all. Have a good sales week.